Hello everyone, how are you? This is Carmela Bell with the Diabetic Type Life. I'm your diabetes strategist. I just want to give a few minutes for a couple of people to see if you can make it in. I did send out a message just letting a few of you know that I was going to be on today to see if I could catch you while I'm live in case you had questions that you wanted to ask. But basically today I want to talk about finger sticks. You know, I think it's amazing how we take things for granted. We think, things are simple and you don't really think about where people might be struggling. Well, I met a wonderful lady last week who is diabetic, and she actually is in the group, and we had such a good time talking and kind of, just figuring out what were her pain points, what were challenges that she's facing. And one of the things she mentioned is, how much her finger sticks hurt. And that would be one of the reasons she also doesn't check more often. Her doctor instructed her to only test once a day, but we kind of concluded that one of the reasons why that could be is because she complained of the pain. In discussing this, I learned and almost lost my breath. I mean, I could not believe it that she said her finger poker or her lancet was set at a 7. I can't believe it. A 7? A 7 is high. A 7, I probably wouldn't even check my blood sugar. If I had diabetes, I probably wouldn't do it on a 7. I would be like, no, forget you. I don't care. I'm not doing it. And so I wonder, it just made me think things that I sometimes might think are, commonly known to most people tend not to be. So I didn't want to miss an opportunity to reach out to you and make sure that no one else is in the same boat as her. Because, poking your finger, it is a bummer. It's a headache. It does hurt, even on a lower setting, but it definitely is painful on a 7. And so we just want to make sure that that everybody has the right setting for them to minimize pain as much as possible. And I have a few other tips that I want to share with you too. So the first thing that I want to do, is show you a couple of the different kinds of lancets that I have. I have 2 different kinds of lancets. This is one, and if you notice here, I don't know how well you can see, but it starts on 1, 2, let me go upside down so maybe you can see the numbers better. Not really, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It goes all the way to 7, this one. This particular lancet has an individual use needle, so each time you would use it, you would have to take this little cap off and replace the needle and put it back on. Now, because I mainly am working with my 10-year-old son, that is a headache. I don't have time for all that. So we use an automatic lancet that we got with one of his old glucometers that we no longer use, but we kept these when we switched over. And these are automatic. They, if you see the 6 here underscore, it holds 6 needles at a time. And after we test his blood, we just rotate this little lever over and it'll go down to 5 instead of 6 to let you know how many needles you have left in the cartridge, which is held under here where my pinky is. It'll let you know how many needles you have left before you need to take it out. So what I want to show you here though is how this one has halves. And so you have a half, 1 half, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5. This one doesn't go to 7. I can tell you based on working with my son that, we traditionally we started out at the half and we went up to 1. When he goes to his endocrinology appointments, because they need more blood than what we need just for a test strip, I will make him go to a 2 if he uses his favorite hand, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And so we use 2 just to make sure we get a good amount of blood so they can do all their little things they need without doing a separate finger stick. And, it works for us. So I just wanted to talk to you all and find out, what is your number? This time we're not talking glucose. This time we're talking lancet. What do you have your lancet set on? Because there are a couple factors here that are important to think about when deciding how strong your lancet pressure should be. So I have a few notes here that I'm going to be referring to just because I didn't want to forget some really key things that I wanted to share. So bear with me as I look away from this screen a couple of times. But mainly, we all know that they hurt. These finger sticks are not fun. So we need to maximize every opportunity to make this an experience that we're going to do as much as possible, because we know without finger testing, we can't really know what's going on with our blood sugar, and without knowing what's going on with the blood sugar, we can't make the right choices for our health. So the first thing I want to share with you is just a few tips on how to maybe reduce the pain. Make sure your hands are warm. When we have cold hands, the hands are kind of hard sometimes, and it makes it difficult for you to get a proper blood drop, and it makes it hard, it makes it more painful to get your blood drop. So you always want to rub your hands together. I was trying to set up my camera in a way that I could have both of my hands free to demonstrate, but technical difficulties, that didn't work out. So I only have one hand. So rub your hands together as you would if you were washing your hands, or when it's cold, you rub them together, blowing them just a little bit just to warm them up. Even if you don't blow them, just really rub them together. Get some friction going. Get those hands warm. Because the warmer they are, the easier blood is going to flow. The other tip is going to be to sometimes, we can test our blood and we don't get the appropriate amount, a big enough drop. So one thing that you can do, when I recommend when you're rubbing your hands, relax your arms, kind of shake it out. Shake it out and kind of go limp like a noodle, and just let your hands hang to the floor, because blood follows gravity. So if you just rest your hands, you got them all warm, and you loosened up your arms and you have it all flexible, and just let your head hang. When you pull your hand up to go ahead now and get that blood drop, you should get a good blood drop without too much pain, as long as we're on the right setting. So then the other thing we want to think about is that setting. That setting is mainly going to be individualized. So for instance, my son has had diabetes for 4 years. He tends to favor one hand over the other. He's right-handed. So when he tests his blood, he likes to use his right hand. And as a result, he's starting to get scarring and calluses, which means basically that the tips and around his fingers, because this is where we want to test, is around the sides. The tips of his fingers are thicker. So when we used to be able to do a half or one level lancet on his right hand and get a good immediate blood drop, not so much. Now we have to use a full one, sometimes a half, and like I said, when we need more blood, we have to even go up to a 2. There have been times where, accidentally we're using, this one, and it just easily rotates around. And, in his bag, maybe it rotated. Who knows who did it? But there have been times where that number has been rotated around to a 5. I mean, as soon as he clicks it, crocodile tears, because it hurts so bad. So I want to make sure that you all, let's dial it all the way back. Whatever your first option is on your lancet, let's dial it all the way back, and let's see and work our way back up to see what number you really need to be at. If you're already at the right number for you, then great. Maybe these other tips will help you to reduce your pain, but if not, dial it back immediately. If you haven't been poking your finger for years and years and years, more than likely you don't have thick calloused fingers to where you need a 7 or a 5 or even a 4. So let's dial it all the way back to 1 and just see how well of a blood drop you get. If you get a good size blood drop and it's enough for the strip that you use, that's good enough. You don't need it to be any higher. We want to minimize the pain as much as possible. So the other thing that we want to take into consideration when we're talking about painful finger sticks is alcohol swabs. Alcohol is an astringent, and it tightens the skin. and it makes obtaining your blood sample a lot harder. So it's really better for us to wash our hands with soap and water, dry them well, and then, that way you can also get them nice and warm and do your blood drop that way. The alcohol really doesn't help us. If you're in a bad situation and well, I would rather get these germs off my hands because of wherever I've been, then sure, use that alcohol, make it work. But this is just a tip. Anytime you can use soap and water, that would be best when you are getting ready to do your finger stick. The other thing is what I talked about my son already, about switching fingers. A lot of times, we get in a habit where, I'm just used to using these two fingers or this right hand, whatever the case may be. But when you do that, you run the risk of overusing those fingers, which makes them less sensitive to what we're trying to do, and you have to work harder to get that same blood drop. So it's really best for us to rotate these fingers. Use the left hand, use the right hand. Don't always use the first two fingers. If some people, he likes to use his pinky. Some people don't get a good blood drop on his pinky, but he does. Some people use their thumbs. It's said that because this is a primary finger that we use for most day-to-day activities, that it can be more sensitive to use the thumb. But if your thumb doesn't hurt and your thumb works for you, then keep it in the rotation, but don't make it the only one. We want to avoid, those calluses and scarring as much as possible. We also want to consider using a fresh lancet. With the price of diabetes supplies today, this stuff gets expensive. So I can understand the need to want to spread it out and to save some for later. That was just one use. I could use that a couple more times. Well, while that is true, you want to be careful. One, for infections and stuff. We don't want you to get infected by using a old dirty lancet for too long. And two, you want to make sure that you're changing it, because each time you use those needles and they puncture the skin, they start to get dull, and the duller they get, the more it's going to hurt. So if you are reusing lancets, make sure to change them out, regularly, at least a couple of times, after a couple of uses. And for the main thing, for the last thing, you want to choose the best monitor for you. There are lots and lots and lots of glucose testing monitors, and they all come in different prices. The strips come in different prices. Do what you can do based on your finances and based on functionality. If one is easier for you, but it's not for somebody else, well, good. It's good for you. You use that. So you might need to, if you're having a really tough time with a certain glucometer that you're using, maybe talk to your doctor about changing that. Or, if you have flexible spending plans with your job, the glucose monitors are actually covered. So you can use your flexible spending account and go get a new one. Don't suffer using one that is just way too painful for you. There are also glucometers where they test you on alternative parts of your body, like certain parts of your arm or hand. We had a vendor call us about one before, but I don't know. The conversation didn't go well. I didn't know if they were scammy or what, so I didn't pay attention. And we were doing well with what we had. But I just want to say it to you to let you know there are other options. So if you don't know where to go, you can talk to your pharmacist at your local drugstore where you get your medications. They can talk to you about them, or ask your doctor, and they might be able to give you some recommendations on some different ones. Or if you have a diabetes educator can also give you some other tips on what other glucometers to try. So I hope this was helpful. I know that testing your blood is a mainstay. It is super important. You just have to get it done. It hurts, but you gotta get it done. We can't fix what we don't know. And if you're not testing your blood, you don't know what's going on. And as I digress just a little bit, I want to say that there is no diabetic that I personally, and this is my belief as a mother of a type 1 son and friend, niece, relative to many type 2s, I don't believe any diabetic should wake up in the morning and go to bed at night without knowing their blood sugar. So at minimum, make sure you know those numbers. make sure you know what's going on with you. But whatever the case, follow your doctor's orders, do what they're telling you to do. Just make sure you're testing. And so I hope you try out these things just to see if things are easier or harder, or if you even have some different tips that could help everybody. Please put them in the comments. We want to know. It takes a village to kick diabetes to the curb, and I don't want to do it by myself. So if you have some tips, let us know. We're going to work with it. If you're watching this on the replay, thank you for joining. I'm so glad you took the time to come over. I hope that if this was beneficial to you, that you will like it, that most importantly, you will share it, because diabetes is so easy to hide. I mean, you literally don't walk around with the hat on your head that says, I have diabetes. You know, you don't have a necklace necessarily that you have to show to everybody to tell people you have diabetes. Your hair is in a certain color if you have diabetes. So there are a lot of people who are dealing with pre-diabetes and diabetes who are, you know, shameful and embarrassed. So they're not telling you they have it. So it's really important that we all just spread this information, share these posts. My book is coming out soon. And I wanted to motivate people who are, you know, getting by, to stop getting by and to start fighting. So this is one step that we can all take to try to help save another person's life. If you're not ready to save your own, save somebody else's, and maybe you'll get the motivation you need to start caring for yourself better. But in the meantime, I'm going to be lifting you up and encouraging you, and I look forward to any and all comments. And please don't forget to like and share the page, and like and share this post. Be well, test often. I'm Carmela Bell, your diabetes strategist. Have a good day.